The British Empire believed that it was spreading enlightenment and order, and perhaps some might agree. But if you're one of those cultures who got colonized and your culture was suppressed and your artifacts were taken, perhaps you don't think that same narrative, right? Even today, we have nations that justify wars and invasions of other nations claiming to bring liberation or stability. Whether it's in Russia or Ukraine, conflicts throughout Africa and the Middle East, the language sounds noble, but the results are often devastating, sometimes for both sides. Just like in Star Wars, those in power believe that they are the heroes, but believing that you're the good guy doesn't make it so. And the reality is that there are good guys and bad guys on both sides. There are good forces and bad forces, and sometimes we can even do bad when we try to do good, and that's why it's hard. But we so like having a bad person to blame that the modern Christian imagination popularizes the idea that all the good stuff that happens in the world is God, all the bad stuff that happens is Satan. We just blame it all on Satan, and then we just have this nice, easy scapegoat. We just say, well, Satan did that, right? But the reality is that it's far more deep and complicated than that. It's not merely some cosmic chess game playing out between God and Satan, which stems a little bit from the narrative in Job, where God and Satan are having a bet, right? Which is kind of an interesting narrative, but we're not going to get deep into Job today because we don't have time. But this is also not how historically church fathers understood the balance between good and evil. Church fathers like Augustine and Athanasius and Aquinas believed that evil was not a created force equal to God, but rather the absence of good, right? And I love this because sometimes we think that evil people are just out there being evil, doing evil in the world because they're evil. But sometimes it's just the absence of good that allows evil to happen, right? It's like darkness exists because of the absence of light. You cannot cast darkness into something, right? You can simply shade the light from it. Does that make sense? I know it's a weird physics concept, but evil does not necessarily have its own substance, some of the church fathers would argue. It's what happens when love or justice or grace are absent. The Apostle Paul added another layer, and he often wrote about the evils of the flesh, not just as our physical bodies, but as the way that sometimes we can be less compassionate and we can be more selfish. Sometimes we can be more fearful and less loving, sometimes more prideful, and it pulls us away from the things that are of God, and it pulls us more towards the self and the ego.